Next up is another very exciting panel. It's on the building resilience from the perspective of the producer.
Recording stopped.
And our
recording in
for
progress.
This panel, I would like to introduce our moderator for this panel, Building Resilience in Fine Cacao, the producer's perspective, is Jerónimo Pruijn. Hello, how are you? Thank you for joining us. Oh, you need to unmute yourself.
Okay.
There you go. Hello, nice to see you.
Nice to see you again. Thanks for inviting me. It's a huge pleasure to be here, particularly in a panel which is focused on the producer's perspective on this matter of building resilience. So,
well, it's an honor to have you. We can invite all of your panelists to turn on their cameras now. And I will hand this over to you to have the introductions and get going with your conversation.
Okay.
Thanks so much.
Thank you for organizing this wonderful event and this great panel, which will bring up a lot of very relevant issues. I was listening to the former panel talking about the cost of productions, and of course, when you talk about cost of production, you talk about producers, and they have to fulfill a lot of expectancies and criteria and regulations. So let's listen to the producer's perspective on this panel. Sorry if my English is not that perfect as I would like it to be, but I'll do my best. So I'm Jerónimo Pruijn, the CEO of SPP Global, and I'm going to introduce to you the different members of this panel. I'll just say their names and their organization, and I will ask them to shortly present themselves. So in the first place, I would hand over the microphone to George Fletcher. He's the manager and at the same time producer of UOPROCAE from Ecuador. So George, please present yourself. Is George there? He's not. Well, if he's not, I'll tell you that he's a biologist of small producer of fine aroma cocoa. He works both as a manager and regenerative production advisor and technician in UOPROCAE, an organization of small producers in Ecuador. Together with his family, he manages the Chaguisa farm, which is a small permacultural and agroecological demonstration farm in the Chocó rainforest. So he will join later on, I hope, and I'm sure he will. And I'll go to the second person that is joining us today, which is Sarah Bharath. She's a cocoa service provider based in Trinidad. Please, Sarah, can you present yourself?
Sure. Greetings, everyone. Thank you to the organizers for the invitation, and especially thank you to all the farmers who have been a most amazing teaching and learning ground for what I will be able to share, and hopefully bring some clarity to, maybe bring more questions than answers, but certainly open some very dynamic conversations. I work here in Trinidad primarily directly with small farmers, specifically on the Meridian Trinidad Microlot project, but I continue consulting work throughout the region directly with farmers to help improve their production from soil to final saleable seed and everything in between.
Thank you very much, Sarah. So this next person we have on this panel is person that has been a long time in the scene. It would be, yes, let's go to her. Charita Puentespina. My pronunciation would be very Spanish. I know she's not from Latin America. No. She's from the Philippines. So please go ahead and present yourself, Charita.
Yeah, okay. I would start by saying, Maayong buntag sa tanan. That's good morning for us here in Davao City. That's in the island of Mindanao, Philippines. Well, first, How do I get myself there? Okay. Thank you for the organizers of this summit for the opportunity to showcase Filipino resiliency, especially in cacao farming. So, I am an ordinary cacao farmer thrust into this opportunity to do some work with cacao as a I have been into this agricultural activities for several years, doing flowers and some vegetables, now into cacao, and in charge of farming and having my beans processed by our company, just proximity to the farm, and okay, that's what I do, provide beans for the factory that Sun operate, and we call it Malagos Chocolates from the Philippines.
Okay. Thank you very much, Charita. The last but not least, it's Aaron Sylvester. He's from the Tri-Island Chocolate and Grenada Chocolate Company. Go ahead, please.
Well, thank you, Jerónimo. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone. Just want to say thank you for having me first and foremost, and just to say yes. So my name's Aaron Sylvester. I'm firstly a cocoa farmer and secondly a chocolate maker based here in Grenada in the West Indies. I'm also part of the Cross-Atlantic Chocolate Collective, which is a global south movement of chocolate makers and cocoa farmers who are actually revolutionizing and changing the way in which chocolate is produced and how the industry operates, in essence. So I'm, in essence, I kind of got into the chocolate industry not too long ago, kind of 2016. I inherited a small chocolate farm from my grandparents, a 2-acre farm. And since then, I've been learning about how to make chocolate, how to really understand the land that we have through permaculture and regenerative agriculture. In essence, really producing fine flavored chocolate on island, with the passion to move that around in terms of do more with what we do with the cocoa from an experiential perspective, and giving people a chance to really understand what we do in Grenada, and selling the chocolate as well as the byproducts that we also produce on our island as well.
Thank you very much, Aaron. So we have a wide variety of people and perspectives at this panel. I don't know if George is finally able to, I think he's there, but if he's able to activate his mic and his camera, so we can at least see his face. Are you there, George? Fletcher?
I think he's having some challenges at the minute, Jerónimo, but I think he'll join in shortly.
I'm sure he will.
Yeah. Hold on.
Problems with my headphones and the background, but I'm here.
Okay. So
un poquito de problema. After introducing myself, okay? And I'll turn the video on.
Okay. So we will go to the first part.
Or I'll start the video with no background. Oh, there it is. Can you see me there with the background?
You can see the background. We cannot see you. But
oh, that's very weird.
It's the first step.
I don't know how to do that. Okay, I'll start. I'll get it fixed later. My name is George Fletcher. I've been a cocoa producer for 20 years. I am a biologist and conservationist that turned into a farmer. And I try to bring these perspectives into cocoa farming, trying to look for a more sustainable way to farm. 15 years ago, I joined a cacao co-op organization, and gradually I became a leader. Eventually acquired experience, and through my background in permaculture, started promoting environmentally friendly practices in my co-op. And currently we're one of the co-ops in Ecuador that is leading in environmental issues. So right now I am the manager of the co-op, and I'm starting to lead some projects related to environmental issues. Thank you.
Thank you very much, George. I hope you can fix your camera, and we're happy that you're here finally. So let's take off right away with one of the main big questions we would like to talk about today, and it's we are giving 2.5 minutes to each of our panelists to talk about and to share their view on in regard to these questions. And of course, please also incorporate comments or reactions to what other panelists just said, and try to avoid duplication as much as possible. So here we go. The first question would be, for the first intervention of 2.5 minutes, what are the main challenges for the fine cocoa producers in the short and long term? So I would like to ask Charita to start first in this round.
Yeah, okay. The chocolate, fine flavored chocolate industry in the Philippines is very, very new. You know, sometimes I think there's this tree, the cacao tree, where we had for so many years, but we have not really taken advantage of its beauty and be able to do good chocolates. Only until about the year 2014, where we started doing it better with fermentation processes now, because we have been taught or got some information that chocolates at cacao can only be made chocolates if they undergo fermentation. So we are a very new player in this industry, and our really challenge is for our farmers to accept that they really need to do proper fermentation of their beans so that we can come up or maybe be able to sell in the global market our products of good fermented beans. Because definitely our genetics of our trees, being Trinitario hybrids, could give very good beans to be made into fine flavored chocolates if they are properly fermented. And that's really the biggest problem for us, so that we can have that resiliency for us to go ahead with the industry when we will be able to get good prices for our beans. So that's it. I don't hear you.
Sorry. So thank you very much, Charita, for this first intervention, talking about the big challenge of the fermentation. So we would like to go now to George, if you can answer this question on the central challenges of fine cocoa producers in the short, long, and long run.
Okay, I'm going to speak from the perspective of Ecuadorian cocoa farmers. One of the biggest recent challenges in the short term has been this cadmium issue. Cadmium levels happen to be naturally high in the Andes because of volcanic activity. So we have extensive regions of Ecuador that have high cadmium levels. I think this is common to all the Andes. And the cadmium thresholds have gotten a lot of farmers in trouble, and we have to develop new ways to solve this problem. In our co-op, we are promoting environmentally friendly practices that increase organic matter and reduce cadmium absorption. So far, we have coped with this issue, but we know that it is a big challenge for most of the small producers in the country. Another big challenge is these new regulations from the European Union. Deforestation free is going to backfire for small producers because of the technology currently being used, not recognizing a forest from regeneration and from abandoned pastures turning into forest again. So a lot of small farmers are going to show up as deforesters, and in exchange, large monoculture plantations that were planted more than 7 years ago are going to be free of deforestation. So this regulation needs to be improved so that it's not actually a threat to small farmers. And finally, the cost of production in fine aroma cacao, the cost of production is higher and the yields tend to be lower. And if we want to continue planting diversity, we need to figure ways to improve the farmer income without necessarily replacing for monocultures. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So then we would now go to Sarah, if you can share your experience on what are the challenges of cocoa producers in your region.
Jerónimo, if I may ask, because I'm the only non-farmer here, but I will be speaking on some of the farmer context here from Trinidad, can you give all the others a chance to go? And then I can give some context, because what they're saying is really, really important to what I have to weigh in on. So I'd rather go last.
Okay. No worries. So we'll go to Aaron.
Sure, no problem. Thank you, Sarah. So just from my perspective in Grenada, and in some of the observations that some of the members of the Cross-Atlantic Collective, those African countries have shared, is that one of the challenges that we have is exporting our chocolate primarily. You know, obviously producing chocolate in a hot climate is not the easiest thing for anybody to do. And the challenge that we have is exporting that chocolate. So, you know, trying to have finished chocolate, well tempered, arriving in Europe or in New York, for example, is a challenge because we don't have all of the facilities to get it from A to B and a direct cold chain, which has been one of the challenges. You know, one that many people laugh at, but is a fact for me and some others in the Caribbean, is that DHL, for example, don't look at chocolate as a product that they allow to be exported. So as much as, you know, using courier companies is obviously a quick way of getting small scale chocolate around the globe, it's not open to us. It's not an option. So we have to go for the more expensive options, which is sending small quantities via air. And you can only imagine what that costs when you do the maths behind it. I think the other challenges that we have as well is just quantities, you know, is the ability to have to sell. So like I said before, send small amounts off island when sometimes buyers want larger quantities but aren't necessarily willing to pay the price that a small scale farmer would want them to be able to pay to make it sustainable and to make it make sense. So that's just a quick insight into some of the challenges. I know there's lots more, but just a snapshot.
So, yes. Thank you very much, Sarah.
Thank you, Jerónimo. Based on the context in which I work here and in the region, I will say for me and for the farmers that I serve, the education aspect, information, access to information that is actually easily digestible and relevant is really, really a challenge. And it's incredible that it continues to be that way despite the number of efforts that have been afoot for years, the amount of investment that has been made in various initiatives to get information to farmers, participatory workshops, etc., etc. We need to really revisit the models that we've been using. We need to ask ourselves, what questions do we really need to ask? Are we listening enough to the producers? what exactly do they want? Because yes, we may have solutions. I can have solutions, but there may be very location-specific challenges that cripple farmers in one zone in a tiny country and not in another, okay? So based on my experiences and tied to what George has brought forward, and that's quite the Pandora's box in its own right, the education with respect to what is happening on the ground, literally from the soil up, and recognizing, at least from the productivity, and being able to work intelligently with the systems. The information, it's there, but it's the translation of that information into actual action. So everything from, how can I manage my fermentations? How can I design my facilities? Form and function. We need to look at and revisit how have we done cacao operations, let's say, for example, in this country. Are we continuing to use formulaic approaches that no longer serve the system because of how the markets have differentiated, different farmer needs, different farmer constraints? Are we asking the right questions? And one of the things that my work has actually, it has really humbled me to see how much the information, even though it's there, farmers still don't understand certain things. It's not that they don't know, but it's the connecting the dots. Yeah, so I'll sum it up as education.
Thank you very much. So without further ado, I would like to go to the next question. We're going to put to the different panelists. So there's a lot of talk about sustainability, and there's all kinds of expectancies from different parts of society and economy and consumers' perspective, and, governance perspectives, etc. But what do producers themselves think about sustainability? What does it imply for them to get to full sustainability in all the imaginable dimensions of sustainability? So would like to ask George to start to kick off this issue. So please, George, you have got up to 2
Hello again.
minutes.
My camera is not working. I've tried everything. Okay. Sustainability has several angles to look at it. And from a producer's perspective, the economic aspect of sustainability is one of the most important. If farming is not profitable enough, we're not going to have any farmers in the next generation. They're going to rather do something else. So I think this is one of the biggest issues of sustainability. We need to make farming more sustainable. This is one of the, economically, this is one of the reasons why there is, farmers are getting older and older. The average in my co-op, for example, the average is 55. And we are working in including the youth, and it's happening, but it's not happening at a fast enough rate so that in the long term, we will have as many cocoa farmers as we do now. On the environmental side, there is a little bit more there is less awareness in the farmers of the environmental problems surrounding them, because it takes generations to see the rivers have less water, or to feel the change in the climate. So sometimes there is less awareness, but the ones who do have awareness are looking for ways to do that without affecting the economic side. And the measures being taken by the other actors of the chain are not necessarily helping this, like in the case of these new requirements from the European Union, because they are not well designed. The producers were not taken into account for designing these new measures, and being one-sided, they do the opposite that they intend to do. And on the social side, I agree with Sarah. Yes. Okay. Thank you.
If I'm putting up this sign of the W, remind me, you still have got a couple of seconds, so you don't have to stop immediately.
Just want to say that on the social side, education is the biggest issue. on all levels, not only on technical issues, also the fact that always the education in the countryside, in the rural areas, is the least quality education in most cocoa growing countries.
Okay, thanks. So, thanks, George, on this to share this view on sustainability from producers from your region. Aaron, can you give your experience, share your experience on this field?
Sure. So I think from my perspective, the key, when I kind of look at sustainability, it kind of stems around the missing what kind of partnership. And I think when you have, for example, relationships with a maker out of origin, or you have a shop that might purchase your product, it's really for them to understand you and your situation and your environment and have that relationship. So how many kids do you have, who you are, what situation do you have in your farm, your climate, really understand you, so we have that relationship, because then that really helps us understand how we can make things sustainable. Because I think, for example, there's so many chocolate makers or cocoa farmers who are producing great beans, but when it comes to them having a challenge in their country due to the weather or the climate, all of a sudden makers decide to switch from one origin to another, and who's left holding the bag, so to speak. So I think when there's a way to start looking at things as a partnership, you understand that how can we start diversifying with that farmer and create a business model where it's a you and me situation. So for example, you might have beans. I love your beans. How can you make chocolate for me in origin? Or how can you produce a curvature in origin and send that to me in my country? And now I can now do what I need to do with that. But the value is now staying in origin, for example. I think there's situations around, origin trips. I think, from a simple perspective of understanding that situation. So coming to origin, I've lost count the amount of makers that I've met who've never actually been to a cocoa farm before, or at least sucked the cocoa pod bean before. And I think that's the missing part in that kind of whole sustainability, where we're closing that loop and having those connections and even just down from the education perspective. I think, that diversification from the maker side of it, where you might need sugar or you might want certain spices. How about we have that conversation with the maker, with the farmer, to say, look, I need sugar, I need salt, I need cinnamon. Can you now produce that for me too? And now we have, way more products coming from one location, and it's serving the purpose that it may have for that maker. And all of that just comes back to having that conversation. And I think when you have that partnership, instead of I buy your beans, I make chocolate, it's more of a case of we purchase the beans, we purchase the salt, we purchase the byproducts from you, and then we all benefit. And I think that is ultimately sustainability. And to go back to my original point, it's a partnership.
Thank you very much, Aaron. Charita, can you share your point of view on sustainability as from the Philippines producers' perspective?
Yes. Again, I would say we are very new in this market, or in this play of different ideas on how to go about this industry and to sustain it. And definitely, I've been hearing all of these ideas from you who have good these experiences. And definitely for our industry here, we are very new, and our cacao farmers are very enthusiastic at this point, where we have just been awarded several awards, our farmers, when we joined the biodiversity program of having these beans, how many different beans awarded or recognized as fine beans. So I agree very much with, was that Sarah, about the education of the farmers to continue, and also the education where we have all of this information, but it does not really go down to this part of the world, of the chocolate world. So I think that's what still is lacking. And definitely I hope with our new council, national council, we will be giving or receiving this information better.
Okay, thank you very much. Sarah, please.
Yes, thanks, Jerónimo. Just wild applause for what Aaron, Charita, and George have said. I see we've jumped straight to question number 4, and it just shows you how everything is just connected and there's going to be serious overlap, yes? Relationship-based buying in this industry. This is what the craft chocolate industry, or however you choose to call it, because I know we have some disputes over names, but this is what it's about. It's relationship between and among the various actors, both human and otherwise. And when it comes to producers at the farm level, having them understand their relationship to the land is one of the things that I recognize we have to revisit. I have stopped assuming that because someone is a farmer on land, that they really understand at a deeper level how much responsibility, how much influence they have. And I'm not going to say control, because this is not about control. This is about working with the systems, yes, and understanding how, with simple and small tweaks, understanding how the system wants to be nudged, we can go in very sustainable directions. We can tick a lot of boxes without having to necessarily itemize and say, well, let's fix this and let's fix that, and then something else moves, because we're not looking at the key levers that will move all the levers at the same time. So coming back to the relationship, the education is tied to the relationship, okay? And the invisible structures, for those of us who are very much into not just the permaculture methods of working with the land, whether you want to call it permaculture, regenerative agroforestry, syntropic agriculture, the principles remain the same. And I recognize that until we address both the invisible and the visible structures in the space, we're going to continue trying things with exorbitant amounts of money being poured and dumped into the space, but we're ignoring the fundamental principles of coming from the understanding that we're going to have to work with nature, we're going to have to work with each other, and the solutions are there, right nested right within the challenges that we have.
So this way we have quite a broad perspective on what sustainability can imply. A lot to do with, of course, with relationships. In the end, for the next question, we would like to have some more concrete examples of how, in practice, we know we've talked with each other as panelists, so we know there's a lot of concrete examples to share about how to create this increased economical, social, and environmental impact for producers and for their environment through market-oriented strategies and actions. So I would like to start with Aaron. I think you have quite a lot of ideas and experience to share on this matter, and then go over to the other ones. So please, Aaron.
Sure, no problem. So I think in terms of some of the ways, obviously one of the key things that we've done with the Cross Atlantic Collective is every month we do a chocolate tasting. So we give individuals the opportunity to actually meet the makers, have a conversation, discuss, what the flavor of the chocolate was like. And I think, that's what's missing, is having that direct relationship with the chocolate maker, with the cocoa farmer who's had the chance to learn to make chocolate and really understand and have that direct relationship that I discussed earlier. I think it's looking at things like from an economic perspective, giving people a chance to come to the farm and do origin experiences and really connect and understand. And, I've lost count of the amount of people who don't know what cinnamon is when I throw it in front of them, and they seem to think it grows in Starbucks. So, it's really trying to get people back to know where their food comes from, and we've got lost along the way. Even just giving, it's about experiences, and my experience has always been about giving people a chance to come to my farm, do honey tasting, see how the bees do what they do and how important they are to us. give people a chance to come to my farm, pick cocoa in the morning, and in the afternoon go to my chocolate factory and make their own chocolate bar. Connect the whole journey, you know, not just have that one experience where you buy the chocolate on a shelf, actually go to where it's being fermented, go to the fermentation, the fermentary, experience that. You know, it's experiential tourism is what I really focus on in my country, and it's something that I've really tried to push forward to people, and just really connect those dots, because that's what's so important in education. Because I think we're all traveling now, and I just think there's that disconnect between having that boots on the ground, connecting people to the shops, connecting the curvature to hotels and having them use our chocolate, and actually connecting on their menu who the farmer is, where the farm is that this chocolate in this dessert that you're about to experience has come from, and who the person is. And I think that connection starts to throw up more questions and makes them really want to know and dig down a little bit deeper into who it is that they've connected with and what it is that they're actually tasting.
Thank you very much, very illustrative. Charita, can you please share some actions or strategies you've developed in practice in this matter to improve the profitability?
Okay. So hearing from Aaron and was that Sarah about connectivity, my company has a Cacao Museum, the one and only in the Philippines, where children and farmers go to understand how or when and how developed countries do their making of the chocolates. Just the museum will also show them how it's being done in quantity, not just the small quantity done in the farms. So it's a rather, the children will have the experience of baking or making their chocolates from a prepared curvature, and they make it on the blocks and bake their own chocolates. So that's the appreciation of a lot of Filipinos on this generation who don't really know where the chocolate is coming from. So we had that as part of our connecting with the farmers. Also, we are consolidators, and we definitely have connections with the farmers that from whom we source the beans. Well, every now and then they request for more seminars, and we do seminars, actual farm tours, and also visits, assistance when they do their establishment of their farms. And continued, we continue this assistance until about 2.5 years, where they will have the produce that they can eventually be able either to sell to us or to sell to whomever would like. Yeah, so that's the connections that we have.
So thank you very much. George, would you like to go in?
Hello. Now you can see my picture at least. Okay.
Yes.
I'm going to talk from the perspective of my co-op now, because before I was talking on the perspective of Ecuadorian small farmers. My co-op has been very successful on marketing its chocolate and getting good prices, because we have also a very direct relationship with our buyers. We sell directly to the chocolatiers, and we also have them visit us and show them everything we do. They really appreciate all the environmentally friendly practices we promote, and the fact that we care about food sovereignty, one issue that wasn't touched when talking about sustainability. Farmers need to grow their food as well. You see what's happening with the banana growers in Ecuador who exported to Russia. Now they have no food because they only have bananas. So in the case of cacao, we are also promoting diversification and other important two issues. We are also working with protecting watersheds and enhancing biodiversity and protecting soils. So we're promoting terracing in slope land, ground covers and other practices. And we have our buyers visit and see all these things that we do. We also have a participatory certification system for monitoring all these practices. And we have full transparency of all this work with our buyers. And for this, we are getting premiums over the standard certification premiums. So we are really working hard on being ahead.
Okay. So thank you very much. That would be, last but not least, Sarah again.
George, that's super encouraging to hear, and we need to be in contact after this. Okay, just to share what I've been able to see and experience and watch grow on the ground here. We've not only had an explosion of value-added products coming from cacao, but as Aaron highlighted, the other on-farm products, the both fresh and converted, and the transition from tree to finished product or fresh product. The experience that folks can have with that is mind-blowing. It seems simple, but for those of us who have experienced it alongside them, it can be life-changing. And what I will say is this, I tend to coin it tasting the terrain. And one of the things that I have been slowly but surely building with some of the core farmers that I've been working with here is that the tourism, the ecotourism and agrotourism efforts not only be focused on cacao and the secondary products that can be derived from cacao, but the educational tours that can be used to build awareness of the space in terms of everything from how the management of that space or the lack of good management of that space impacts the kind of food you're able to produce, the quantity of food you're able to produce, the diversity of food you're able to produce, the nutrient density of that food. And in that way, you begin to teach without preaching. You begin to teach without having formal school structures, right? But in a way that allows people to leave with a bounty of not only information, but a whole bunch of, really tasty stuff that is inside of them that they will never forget and they want to come back to, right? So the educational tours aspect is a growing one here in the country and definitely in the region. And it's a very powerful one because, like I mentioned before, it's going to help move a lot of levers and bring a lot more young people into the space who are interested in the science, the engineering, all the other different technological as well as social aspects that are brought into the conversation at the same time. We're not trying to do this in a formulaic way. We're doing this in a very dynamic and organic way, for want of a more comprehensive term.
Okay, thank you very much, Sarah. Now we're going to the last round of questions to the panelists, and then afterwards we'll have the chance to have some questions from the audience. After talking about the challenges, about what is the view on the long run, and what are we already doing as producers to get in contact with the market and to get a better position. What do we need? From the other market actors, that could be final traders, but also the people and the governments and the international organizations who make the rules and policies for which impact the cocoa and chocolate sector. So what do we need from them? We would like to focus a bit on this matter in this last round. So please, Charita, if you can start in this round, please, on this issue.
How could you repeat that again? What's the
so
best?
From the perspective of producers, we've already talked a bit about the impact of regulations and such. So what do we need from them, from not only the final buyers, but also the people who set the rules and for trade, for certification, for sustainability? What do we need from them as of the producer's perspective?
Oh, as to policy changes and guidelines,
yes,
small farmers would have a difficulty into getting that information way ahead so that they can do something in the management of how they do things. There is this lack of that information available for, like, our country, who's very new. I don't have the platform to be knowledgeable on what are going. Except that.
Yo creo que la entrevista en el caso de Centroamérica,
somebody could close the microphones of people. Some other discussion going around. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
So please continue.
So yeah, these regulations that are coming up, we get knowledge of it, but we should have a better communication, maybe from, I don't know which NGOs that are very active in cacao, that should be giving all of these informations to have the farmers ready. Definitely improvement has been here on that regard, and we should have that. I don't know how they do in your country, the big cacao growing countries, how communications go around, but not yet in our industry, which I think is coming because we have already going forward as to the organization, the national organization that we have.
Okay, well, it's
maybe membership or any way that we can have that information platform ready for us.
Okay, maybe the others can also give an answer to this question on what do we need and how do we need to this kind of regulations and policy making organizations to work and to take into account the interests of the small producers of cocoa small producers. Aaron, can you dive into this matter, please?
Sure. I'll just make two points really. I think, from my perspective, the big challenge or the big area for me is organic certification. And I think organizations that are out there charge quite a lot for small scale farmers to be able to be organically certified. And I'm very new to the PGS, the Patisserie Guarantee System, for farmers to be able to be self-certified as organic. But I feel like that's a movement that people need to get their heads around, and us as farmers really need to adapt, because and people need to realize that is just as good as all of the fancy organic certification organizations with the big fancy stamps that are out there that cost many thousands of euros to achieve, because we aren't in a situation to be able to do that. I think the second point is, which was new to me in yesterday's talk, but I guess I can only put it under fake chocolate, that's being produced in North America, and I guess in some Silicon Valley company or some Silicon Valley lab. But I mean, I don't know where that's come from, and I don't know why cocoa trees are an issue or a threat to them. But in essence, the cocoa trees produce great chocolate, so I don't quite understand why someone has to invent fake chocolate and why it seems to be a thing that's needed. So for me, I'll let everyone else discuss that. But unless someone can give me a valid reason in the comments, I think it's fair to say it's not necessary.
We'd like to hear, thank you, Aaron. I'd like to hear George's opinion on this matter. I think you've already put out some issues in the beginning of your talk, so please go on.
Yeah, I think the most important thing here is that any policy making and any regulations need to involve the producers, because it's around what we do that the regulations are coming, and we never have a voice. So that's the first thing. Then I acknowledge that there is a need of a transition, not only because there is some unsustainable practices, but also because we have climate change on top of us. So we need a transition to more diversified, more sustainably grown cacao, but we need regulations that help that transition be funded by all the actors in the chain, not just the farmers. Everybody needs to contribute to this transition. So if chocolate makers want sustainable cocoa, they need to help the transition towards sustainable cocoa. We cannot put the load on the weakest link of the chain, which is the farmer. And the other thing that I think needs regulation is the protection of heirloom cacao. Because in the case of Ecuador in particular, the huge monoculture plantations are dominant in the landscape. And even the research institutions and the universities and the government research institutions are promoting high yield clones all over the place without regards to all these unique flavors of each region of this country where cacao originated. So those three issues, I think, need to be addressed. Participation of growers in any regulation process, co-funding by all the actors of the transition to sustainability, and the protection of heirloom cacao. Thank you.
Very clear, George. Thank you very much. Sarah.
So, yes. So, George, wow, we definitely need to have a conversation. I totally agree with the farmer participation, especially when it comes to policy development, creation, and actual execution. One of our challenges, and it's not confined to my country, is that of actually getting farmers to work together to have that collective voice go forward. It's not that farmers don't have a voice, or how do we give farmers a voice? Farmers have a voice. Farmers have many voices, okay? The challenge has been that of when you have a space in which there's a lot of mistrust, distrust, there's a lot of corruption, etc., and this is global, right? The challenges that farmers face when they have their own pool of worry on a day-to-day basis, as was mentioned in the previous panel, many are just going to, and they have said, I don't have time for this. I'm battling with diseases on my land. I'm already trying to keep this farm afloat. I don't have time to deal with the talk shops and sitting in meetings where they're arguing about terms and how to define terms, okay? But at the end of the day, it does not invalidate the need for farmers to come together so that they can lobby for what they want, because they know what they want. And then the really relevant information is going to come forward, because consultations happen aplenty. But then there are those who wish to speak who either feel their opinions don't matter, they're not intelligent enough, they're not credentialed enough. And this is why I come back to the invisible structures in the space and understanding that we have to work along and understand the social and human dynamic in this space alongside everything else that we need to do. So the relationship, let me just say something based on the work that I do with Meridian Cacao. Genuine relationship-based buying has really transformed how we're able to deal with farmers in this country. It's a very small project, but it has been very, very instructive in how certain things were done in the past that absolutely need to change. Working with farmers, providing support to farmers is not about handouts. It's about providing relevant support. It's about providing the enabling environment in which farmers can get on with what they genuinely, heartfelt want to be able to do. The purchasing mechanisms absolutely need to understand and respect the production cycles. Again, tied back to relationships. If you're only showing up when it's harvest time, you don't know the challenges. You're not interested in the challenges 6 months and before that took place with the farmers, right? So we have to have closer connections. We have to deepen the relationships, and we have to be honest about our capabilities from the academics to the funding agencies to the farmers. We have to be honest about how much we're prepared to be committed to what we say we want in this industry.
Yes. Thanks a lot, Sarah. Now we've come to the part in which we are going to give the voice to the audience. We have some questions already been raised. Maybe in the meantime, if there are some other people who want to put forward some questions, please use the Q&A box for this matter. In the meantime, I'm going to read the two of the main questions made, which is, hi, Aaron and Sarah, can you speak about the Cross-Atlantic Chocolate Collective, the history of the collective goals and business model? We love your chocolates and we welcome the opportunity to taste chocolate made by the producers. And the second question would be, Aaron, have you looked at the producing blocks of finished chocolate for someone closer to the market to produce the finished bars? Perhaps you could partner with makers in the US and the EU. So maybe we can start with Aaron.
I definitely defer to Aaron for both questions. Hands down.
Sure, no problem. I think it all kind of wraps into one, really. I think in essence, the premise of the collective is to turn, farmers into chocolate makers, and then chocolate makers can learn the skills to be chocolatiers. And in essence, everything happens in origin. At the end of the day, we are the ones that produce the amazing beans. However, sometimes lots of the times the beans or the value of those beans don't end up in our country, they end up somewhere else. So it's how we change that balance. So in essence, we give people a chance, to those in the global south, to be able to learn about chocolate, learn about being a cocoa farmer, and learn about being a chocolatier, and then be able to produce an origin. And then we would then make that products available to those that want to purchase it and use it in their country, whether it be in their chocolate bars, or use the beans to produce chocolate from origin, but have that connection back to the farmer or the cooperative or the farmers. And I think around, if they have a coffee shop or a cafe, to be able to put on that menu that these beans have come from Uganda, or these beans, or the chocolate, more importantly, has come from Tanzania, and have that relationship, so the person now knows who the farmer is, who the farmers are, and have, again, I go back to the word relationship, but it's there and it's very clear. And that's what we do with the collective. And I say that to go back to I think the point around the tastings is we give people a chance to just meet and have that relationship with the people whose hands are making the chocolate, and be able to explain the journey and the challenge that they've gone through to produce the product, and have that relationship. So if you do feel that on your menu you would love to have a Ghana chocolate bar, then hey, connect with that cocoa farmer and be able to work with them. So now you can have that on your menu. And I think that's ultimately one of, there's many goals, but that's one of the areas that kind of covers what we're trying to achieve. I hope that answers the question. I know I covered a few things there.
I hope you do, I'm sure.
Can I just pop one thing in there?
Yes, of course.
More as an opportunity that probably should be explored. An American chocolate maker threw out to me, why is no one looking at the pastry and other industries that don't need finished chocolate, that will take volume, that are willing to, in some cases, they don't even know that they need what you have, because they've settled for larger volume, lower quality material coming from the bigger operations, right? They just don't know that this diversity exists. It's staggering how many people in this industry who still think that cacao has one flavor, and that chocolate has one flavor, and that it can only be used for one derived product, right? It's absolutely insane. So as Charita said, the education, it has to be at all levels. And I think we need to look at where we are not seeing the low-hanging fruit that has been staring us in the face, because we're so busy looking, and rightfully so, we're all busy, but we're looking in particular directions that have been conventional approaches, right? Conventional pathways. But at the side, we have this massive opportunity. And I would like Steve DeVries, thanks for that comment, Steve. It would be really helpful for especially American chocolate makers and wider field, yeah, but I will speak to Americans since Steve was the one who asked the question. Bring the network to us. Let us know who in the industry may be interested in finding out, what can I develop with this? How can we begin to partner to get this couverture or liquor across to the destination point where value is still added in country, but now a greater buying relationship and more of a pull is created with when it comes to our finished, if we want to focus on a chocolate product. But there are a whole bunch of other things we can explore with cacao, because chocolate is only, barely 20% of the actual value of this fruit in terms of the use, how much of cacao is actually used when we work with only chocolate. We have to go back to first principles and really unpack what this fruit is able to do and the various diverse options we can explore. I mean, look at Brazil. Brazil has just, the example has been there for so long, so long. What are we doing? We need to wake up. The answers are there.
I think, and just to add to that, I think Sarah's totally right. I think I kind of jotted down on my little notes from what Sarah said at the very beginning about revisit models and processes, and they really have to be looked at by everyone and ripped up and reconsidered about how we change that. I think one of the questions was about selling curvature locally, and yes, that's totally an option. I think, one of the things of the collective is that we have collective members in North America who, people who have purchased the collective's tasting box, we send our curvature to the US where it's processed by collective members who then temper that chocolate, and then we get it out there to those that purchase the box. So I think we already have those models in place. Now we're at the situation where we're trying to scale that to a position where, more people are aware of what those makers in origin can do and what's available. And I think just to Jodie's point about the chocolatiers, it's very clear that there's, as Sarah had mentioned, there's the big chocolate companies who have relationships and endorsement deals and sponsorships with these culinary schools. And once you leave that school, you're either a Barry Callebaut or you're Valrhona. And you leave, and when you start going into your world, Jerónimo, 2 seconds, when you go into your world of start doing in a restaurant or in a cafe or what have you, you defer back to the Barrys and the Valrhonas and all the others. But you don't think about the different flavor profiles, the ranges, and if you don't know about, where that cacao is available from, look 20 degrees and below the equator, and guess what? You'll find us.
Thanks a lot, both Aaron and Sarah. Of course, very important matters. Also talking about added value at the origin, which is something that. In our experience at SPP is also a very important issue to raise both the knowledge of producers as well as their, let's say, viability as part of this business. There's a third question put forward, which is how could we assure that we as small farmers, cocoa projects and craft chocolate makers can stay connected after conferences like this, which is brilliant, by the way, in order to address directly changes to import and trading policy in a collective manner. So I think this is a crucial issue, so that this kind of conferences really have a strong impact. So please share your visions and ideas. I think there's a lot of organizations and platforms already existing. How can we improve, let's say, the impact of this kind of knowledge and idea sharing? So who wants to answer first? I think we can ask to George maybe to start to answer this question.
Okay, that's a hard one. I think to start, it's easier connecting countrywide. Connections on a wider level are starting, like we're starting an organization of small cocoa growers in Latin America. And this also needs to eventually go worldwide. I would hope that the organizers would maybe make a list of email addresses and share with whomever is interested. I don't know if that works.
Okay, others who would like to hop in on this matter? Sarah?
I don't think we need to reinvent the wheel. There's so many platforms and everyone's so overwhelmed with, the options, right? The fact that this platform, among others, exists. What I found very helpful as a service provider in the space to be able to help connect farmers with farmers, for me to find farmers and other resource persons, it's being able to go to a particular site where I know, they shared some really useful information, and then they also provide links to other support resources. That has been absolutely invaluable. I'm not expecting, me personally, I'm not expecting to find everything all in one place. That would be nice, but we have a lot to tap into. So I think as part of building the network, where we're collaborating on things, we endorse and support, what other people are doing, create links to their efforts, so that as we're reading through, we're clicking through, this is really interesting. This is how I've been able to find a whole bunch of, worldwide farmers who have taught me so much, and with whom now I'm connecting other farmers to just take it forward. So the enabling environment is already here. Of course, it can be improved, but we can use what we have. We don't have to wait for something else to be built for it to move forward. We have what it needs. Let's use what we have right where we are and keep it moving. It will build itself organically. Yeah? That's just my take on it.
Thank you. Somebody else wants to join this conversation, or if not, we can go to the next question.
Sure. Unless Charita wants to say anything, I was just going to say, in essence, what that question is what the collective is there to do. We're a platform for Global South chocolate makers and cocoa farmers. So, I can't say it any clearer. If anybody wants to connect with us and find out more about what the Cross Atlantic Chocolate Collective is about, Google is your friend and use it. And they'll be able to connect with an array of chocolate makers and cocoa farmers ranging from Uganda, Tanzania, Malawi, Nigeria, Ghana, Jamaica. The list goes on. And I think if any of you are chocolate makers or you're chefs or what have you, and you don't know where good chocolate comes from, I think that location might be the one to help you find the answer to any questions you might have in that regard. And whether it's you want to connect with individuals directly, again, I just think that's the place to go right now. I think this platform and this event has been amazing for doing that. And like I said, I think the social media platforms for this event is amazing too. And I'm sure the connections can be made, as well as what George said about sharing people's information. But I think everyone's names are there. I'm sure through LinkedIn and all the platforms that share, Sarah highlighted, the platforms that are there to share information and connect everyone is available. So I don't think reinventing the wheel is necessary. But if you really want to know the answer, I'm sure a bit of digging will give you what you need to find.
I think thank you very much, Ron. Let's jump into the last question before we come to the closing part. It has to do with the participation of producers. I see some comments also in the chat box about producing countries needing to take more control and be more participative in the whole chain. So to get better balances, so in this case, there's a particular question on how we can unite Mexico in a world movement so that the producer produces more and better cocoa for the benefit of him or herself. So that's another question. I don't know if any of you want to give some suggestions on this part. It's a particular question on Mexico, but maybe it could also apply to other producer regions.
Sorry, John. I'm just reading the question. It's quite long. Sorry.
Okay. So
How can we unite Mexico in a world knowledge?
Yes.
I think, Jerónimo, I think I'll probably email a response to that one. I don't think I'd be able to do it justice right now, if I'm honest. I don't know if anybody else could. But
I completely agree with Aaron, and I will follow up on this once we have a contact for the person who asked the question. This is crucial, and there's a way to do this. There are ways. There are ways to do this, and it will build on the connectivity in the collective with both farmers and other service providers. Mm-hmm.
What we've seen in our... Yes, please go ahead, Charita.
May I be... I don't know what's wrong about... Is there something wrong about Mexico's... I'm not aware of that. So how can we make a suggestion? You know, the question is how to unite Mexico in a world movement so that the producer produces more and better cocoa. Isn't Mexico not cooperating with the rest of the industry in that region?
I don't know if there's anybody who could clarify this question. Maybe the person who made it, but it's getting a bit late for this. So I think it's something that's still in the air. I know that Mexico's chocolate history is, of course, very long, but has different characteristics. I think, as far as I can see, in the last couple of years, there's quite a boom in the kind of new way of producing organic and agroecological cocoa, and also an interesting issue you can see is that also producers who have been producing, producers organizations that have been producing mainly coffee in the last decades are now also incorporating cocoa in their production, and this is partly because of the need for particularly producers in the lower regions to have alternatives to coffee production because of the change of the viability of coffee production and their height, the latitude. So of course this remains to be fully answered. I would like to close this session. Okay, if you make it a quick question because we have little time
Very
left.
Quick.
George?
I would suggest connecting with the recently created Latin American Association of Small Cocoa Producer Association. It's still an organization that just started, but that would be a good starting point.
Well, thank you very much for this comment. I see that Regina has shown up, so this means that we're coming to an end. I would have liked to ask everybody to give just a short final comment. I don't know if there's still time for this, Regina?
Yes, there is.
Okay. So please, I would like to ask the panelists to give just a small final conclusion of what their essential point is they want to communicate on this matter of the resilience from the producer's perspective. So I don't know who wants to kick off, maybe Aaron?
Sure. Just briefly, all I would say is that thank you for this opportunity. I think it's clear from my learning from Sarah, Charita, George, there's so much to learn. And I think anyone who's on this panel has probably learned so much that's been discussed and opened their eyes. And I just think all panels like this need to always have a chocolate, at least a cocoa farmer on that panel to give their perspectives, because as anyone can observe, they're definitely eye-opening for all to understand. And secondly, I just think it's great to have this opportunity to share my views and those of the different members that make up the collective. And I thank you.
So thank you very much, Sarah. I'm not leaving you to the last.
Okay, caught off guard. No, that's fine. I, again, like Aaron, really grateful to be here, and definitely grateful for the farmers who who provide so much for us globally, so much. I can't begin to express my gratitude to them. But I want to leave something in the space, not only for the attendees and those in the wider industry, but especially for the farmers, because they're the ones I serve in the space, and this question comes up all the time. You need to understand why you've chosen to farm cacao and be farmers in the first place. If you don't understand the why of what you're doing, it's not going to show you the how. The why will show you the how. So we have to go back to first principles and understand why we're doing what we're doing and begin to engage, connect. Once you begin to seek, you will find. And so again, back to connectivity. For me, it always comes back down to that. Nature has taught us that. It continues to teach us that. We need to listen a little bit more.
Thank you very much, Charita.
Yeah, definitely. Joining this summit now has really made me think more about this industry. It's just not plain growing these cacao trees and harvesting them and making chocolates. So it's a very, what will I say, complex world, I feel, at the moment. Hearing all of the comments of the different panelists. So that's my what my thinking now. But okay, I would like to also to share that my company has been doing a lot of producing cacao and supplying chocolatiers in our Asia Pacific region. And definitely there has to be the connection that we are talking about, so that we could really find out what really is in our beans that would make this industry contribute to the fine flavor chocolates that we can make.
Thank you very much, Charita. George?
First, I want to thank the organizers and the panelists also for sharing all of their great knowledge. I just wanted to say that we're going to continue on the path we've chosen with my organization to lead the way on the change that's needed in the environmental side of farming. When we do this, we also get a greater connection with the earth. And I think that's what farming is about. You are a farmer when you love being in nature. So we're going to continue sharing and promoting these. And yes, that's it. Thanks.
Thank you very much, George. I would also like to thank everybody who has been assisting this important panel. And for us, it's as SPP, as Small Producers Network worldwide, with a lot of cocoa producers, organizations participating from different continents and a lot of countries. We are very happy to see that this kind of panels with the producer's perspective is part of this summit. And I think there's still a lot to contribute and to explore and to give. As said, there's the voice of producers already exists. There's a lot of networks of small producers around the world, and it's not that difficult to get the voice out. And there's a lot of willingness of these producers to participate in this kind of forum. Maybe not everybody will speak English, but Spanish or other languages, and that's fine. Technical solutions for that. I think it's already available to a big extent. So thanks again, and I hope we'll have, as producers, a lot of new opportunities to express our voice and to have people to get to know what is behind the chocolate bar and even the cocoa trees themselves. So thanks a lot, and hand the microphone over to Regina. Thanks a lot for the organization. The great work you've done.
Thank you. Thank you all, Aaron, Charita, George, Sarah, and Jerónimo. It's been a wonderful panel. It's really eye-opening, and I'm so glad we have a panel dedicated to the producers, because that perspective is something that really needs to be a part of the dialogue. And That's why Jenny Samaniego founded the summit, because she really wanted producers to have a seat at the table. Historically, chocolate shows, you know, whether it's Salon de Chocolat or all these shows we love so much, it doesn't always include the producer and their voice. And from countries, you know, all over the world, we aim for getting as many countries involved as we can. And maybe one day our summit will be 4 days long and we can have even more discussions. That would be awesome. Speaking of which, I hope you all mark your calendar. Next year, the summit will be on May 24th and 25th. So that's 2023. We already know we're going to be coming your way May 24th and 25th. We had some people ask if it's going to be in person. The very first summit was in person. It was in Quito, in Ecuador, but we're not sure yet. If it is in person, we can't even say exactly where we might be, but I'm sure we'd still be piping people in on Zoom from all over the world, but whether you're an attendee or a panelist. If we are in person, it's probably going to be a hybrid live event with still some people coming in through Zoom, because that's made it possible to have people from all over the world join the conversation without having to get on an airplane, you know, leave their farm or their factory or their job. They can just dial up on Zoom and make, you know, some time to participate. And that's probably one of the, you know, very few good things we could say that came out of the pandemic, is it's allowed this summit to be much more global, and we will definitely be going even more global next year. And if we do have an event space, we'll let you know. But for now, we at least know our event dates, and that's the 24th and 25th. So thank you guys so much. I hope you'll stick around and listen to the next panel.